Welcome to Thinking Lives Hotel, our LinkedIn Live series from ABB Smart Buildings. For those of you who don't know me and haven't joined our previous sessions, I'm Sumaya Bawani, and today we're closing our three-part Thinking Hotels Live series. In our first session, we explored how sustainability is becoming a competitive edge for hotels. And in our second session, we looked at how technology is shaping the guest experience. And now we're going to look ahead and ask a simple but very critical question. Is your hotel ready for what's next? Hotels are expected to operate for decades, but the pressure they face from regulations, sustainability, and technology, not to forget the expectations from guests, are changing faster than ever. So today, we are going to explore what future-proofing really means and how hotels can make decisions that continue to pay off over time. So I know some of you have already put in where you're dialing in from, so we'd encourage you to please continue doing so. We'd love to hear where you are all in around the world and engaging with us from. So we will keep an eye for that throughout today's session. And now I'm going to move into introducing our speakers. We have with us Peter Andrews, who's the Senior Director of Global Programs, Policy and Public Affairs from the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance. And we're looking forward to see how he brings the global industry perspective on resilience and long-term change. And from the Smart Buildings team, we're joined by Lucy Huan, our business line leader from Building Automation, and she's going to explore the operational systems hotels need to future-proof their buildings. We also have Aldo Shaka, who's the head of product portfolio and R&D, and he's going to look at the tech behind the scenes and what's helping hotels evolve as expectations continue to change. Lastly, but not least, we have Raimondo Salandra. He's our business line leader from Home Solutions, and he's going to focus on why design and usability matter for long-term adaptability. So thank you so much for all being here today. I'm really looking forward to our conversations. So let's dive straight in. Peter, so happy that you could be here with us, and let me start with you. When we think about the industry and perspective around future-proofing, how has this become such a strategic priority now? I mean, there's lots of talk around the sustainability reporting, security, rising costs, global expansions, and this fast-moving technology. So there's a lot of pressure, right? I'm eager to see how you unpack this from an industry perspective.
Of course, and thank you very much for having me here today. Delighted to be part of this conversation. We see this challenge as really three key areas. There is the regulation and ESG pressure that is becoming unavoidable for hotels in many parts of the world. Hotels are also long life assets in a short cycle world, and so navigating that is a challenge. And then there is a risk, and that is of locked-in inflexibility. So I'll touch upon each of these 3 points. We know that about 90% of global hotel brands have public sustainability commitments, but less than half are reporting consistently across all of the regions that they operate in or are able to. And this becomes a bit and bigger challenge for many of them. In the EU, buildings account for about 40% of energy consumption and about 35% of emissions, which is why hotels are increasingly targeted by building performance regulation across the EU, such as the Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. And many major hotel markets from Europe to North America or parts of the US, Singapore and so on, are shifting from voluntary ESG disclosures to mandatory reporting, which comes with penalties that are increasingly linked to that asset value and financing. So what's changed is not the ambition here, it's the obligation on the hotels. And sustainability that used to be a brand choice is now becoming more and more a license to operate. And then if we look at hotels as long life assets, we know that the average hotel building's lifespan is about 40 to 60 years. And the average technology refresh cycle is about 5 to 7 years. And then if you add to that, the average regulatory framework updates is every 3 to 5 years. A hotel built in 2010 already has seen multiple energy standards revisions. It's seen at least 2 major cybersecurity expectation shifts. and a complete change within this time frame in guest digital behavior, from mobile first to contactless and so on. So hotels are among the longest lived commercial buildings, yet they operate in one of the fastest changing environments, and needing to adapt is absolutely critical. And some of those hotels have invested in closed building management system platforms, but they're now having to retrofit those, and there are high costs with that. There's difficulty integrating, for example, renewables or EV charging and so on. And so trying to navigate this is proving quite a challenge for many out there. So the biggest risk on that is not choosing the wrong system, it's choosing one that can't evolve with those changing circumstances that I mentioned.
So lots of messages coming around evolution and change. And Lucy, when I think of it from an operational perspective, what would happen if hotels don't plan for this change?
Yeah, thanks, Sue. That we're happy to come back to the third session of the Thinking Hotel Life. So from the hotel perspective, from operation perspective, when hotel do not plan to change or continue to use this kind of outdated technology, so there will be three areas to get a quickly impact. And just over the time, they're definitely going to show up. The first is about the hotel operation and some risks. The old and fragmented software systems in the hotel, which will continue creating this kind of hotel silos. With this kind of old system, there's no real-time visibility across the hotel. For example, the energy consumptions and some building operation or hotel operation and some critical assets need to be monitoring, right? So there's no such kind of a whole data can collect it together. So as a result, hotel operation issues are fixed when something really breaks. There's no such kind of data tells you that it will break. So over the time, it's definitely going to increase the operation risk, and unplanned downtimes, of course, is going to lead to the total cost ownership. The second part that I like to talk about inside the hotel, there are many assets. So the assets, for example, like the elevators, the HVAC equipment, and the lighting, or so some room equipment are not really maintained, optimized way, and without proper monitoring. So this kind of really going to shorten the asset lifetime. It's absolutely going to accelerate the renovation or replacement cycle. That's exactly the cost the hotel owners or the investors of the hotel want to avoid. So at the same time, it's also inefficient energy usage, and which drive up the operation expenses and make it harder to comply with today's regulations. For example, the first session I mentioned about the CO2, right? CO2 reports and some CO2 emission taxes, which are already very real, happening in many countries. And the last one, and the most important one, is about the guest experience in the hotel. Without the modern system, digitalization embedded in the hotel, hotels struggles to deliver the personalization, comfort, and consistency. That will be direct risk to the loyalty and the revenue. So operationally, not planning for changing to the new and the modern system will slow down the hotel. It makes them more expensive, less compliant, and less competitive.
Thank you very much for that, Lucy. But you shared a lot that we can see some benefits on, and I'd like to maybe unpack that from a simplicity behind the scenes perspective. And maybe here I'm going to ask you, Aldo, listening to what Peter and Lucy shared and placing that in context, why is simplicity behind the scenes so important to ensure that we get this future-ready hotels right now?
Thank you, Sue, for the question. It's very well posed, and I like to quote piece of the sentences that Peter and Lucy already said. And Peter took a date, hotels designed in 2010. They already had to go through 2 cybersecurity cycles and several other update cycles. And Lucy used the term that I like a lot, these hotel silos. because technology, and especially digital technology software related to hotels management, has been built along the time. And so it's very easy, if there is not the right flexibility and modularity, to build this silo. And the complexity at a certain point in time reaches a level that you cannot build up anymore on those systems. You just need to scrap and restart from the foundation. So even now, in 2025, so 15 years after the date that Peter set in his example, if we start and design an hotel thinking that we can fully address the future complexity in the design phase, we will fail again. So what is very relevant nowadays is to start with open technologies that can be modular, flexible, that can be adapted to changes, and whose features can be increased along the time. I think we are going to see shortly a video that shows a way to address these with a convenient technology.
And I think that's great. So let's have a look at that video. Thank you very much, Aldo. It brings it to life, right? So it's a real life example of how these foundations, as you rightfully put it, all come together. So let's have a look at a video from Casa Verde Hotel.
On Brazil's stunning coast, there's a new benchmark for sustainable luxury hospitality. Welcome to Casa Verde. Here, every sensor understands Brazilian comfort. Every system delivers sustainable performance. This is hospitality that's built to think. KNX automation defines every moment. Relaxation mode for sunset viewing, eco settings that slash energy consumption, good night scenarios for perfect sleep. This is intuitive luxury that guests remember, and intelligent efficiency that owners profit from, all designed to impress. While guests experience paradise, the numbers tell an even better story. Full return on investment in just 2 years. This isn't just sustainable luxury, it's profitable innovation that proves itself. From electrical distribution to EV charging, from KNX automation to solar integration, this is the power of ABB's complete ecosystem. From Brazilian beaches to Belgian innovation centers, from Finnish wilderness to your next project, ABB technology delivers profitable sustainability in every environment. ABB, where sustainable luxury meets profitable returns. Built to think, designed to impress.
I hope you enjoyed that video and got some insights into some of the technology that's already being shared here and the benefits that the team on screen has been sharing with you. So I think we need to move to the next segment around, what hotels need. So we talked a lot about why this matters, but in order for us to get it right today, we need to focus on what hotels need for long-term performance and resilience. So here I'll ask Peter if you can please just share some of your thoughts and views on what you're seeing across the industry and some of the common pitfalls that hotels are facing today. So how are these actually affecting the long-term competitiveness?
Yes, great question. I guess some businesses are underestimating the regulatory and investor pace of demand. And a good example of this is carbon reporting requirements. And they've moved from the portfolio level down to the asset level more and more so. And they're moving from the annual reporting cycles to increasingly real-time auditable cycles. So businesses designed without integrated data systems now require more and more manual reporting and increased costs associated with that over time. We know that can take up so much of teams' efforts to do so, about 3 to 5 times, I think, more time per asset than automated systems for reporting. In fact, the Alliance, the World Sustainable Hospitality Alliance, has recently launched a ESG platform for the industry to better report on its performance.
So, and that's a good way to maybe.
The other sort of pitfall is designing for today's guests. Back to the example of the 2010 buildings. If guest room controls are designed around a single use case, such as heating, ventilation, that is fixed, they then struggle later on when the building or the company may introduce energy caps or occupancy-based controls or new comfort or wellness standards. And so guests don't quite see those foundations, but they feel the consequences when those foundations can't adapt to their changing needs. And so it's really important that hotels don't fall into that pit trap. A further one would be treating sustainability and technology as add-ons. So retrofitting that energy optimization into a hotel not designed for integration can be much more expensive. And those that plan up front can, for that enabling integration, can upgrade faster, they can face lower disruptions, better costs, and so on. And I guess maybe the final point I'd make is the challenge that is very paramount in the industry, and that is between ownership versus operator and the misalignment there. So asset owners will focus on that long-term value, whereas operators will focus on the brand standards and the short-term performance. And without aligned technology, upgrades can be problematic, and that can be caused by contractual complexities, unclear return on investment, ownership, or inconsistent standards across various portfolios. So future-proofing, therefore, is very much a governance challenge as well as a technical challenge, and that's what many hotels are facing.
When I think about how you've mentioned and spoke about technology and standards evolving, I have to think about design and longevity here. So when you think about that, Raimondo, how can design decisions that hotels make today really impact later on? Is there a need for anything to be adapted? I'm keen to hear your thoughts here.
That is a great question, Sue, because design decision made today really shape how adaptable a hotel will be in the future. The key point for me is this: design must outlast trends. Technology and standard will evolve for sure, but the way people interact with spaces doesn't change nearly as fast, at all. So one of the biggest enabler of adaptability is intuitive control. When control are simple and human-centric, hotel avoid constant retraining and expensive retrofit. A very simple example I can use is the room lighting control. Guests don't want to learn a system. They want to understand it instantly. Clear symbol for on, off, dimming, or privacy. We still make sense 10 years from now, even if the technology behind them is completely different. So as Lucy was saying, the technology has to be updated to avoid a slowdown in the operation of the hotel. But really, we should try not to change the way that people interact with the control, and this is the key. That's the power of centric design. You can upgrade system and meet new standard. Peter was referring to that without changing what guests touch or what staff needed to explain, for example. In the end, the best design choices are the ones that stay invisible to guests, but makes hotel far more flexible over time.
And as we think about these underlying systems to really make these right decisions or help make these right decisions, choices and decisions, I think it's important for us to unpack how strong technology and foundations can help hotels. So maybe here we can ask Aldo, what are the risks you see that faces the systems that aren't designed to really evolve, given some of the comments that Raimondo has just shared alongside the changing needs and expectations?
Look, so I think there are, in the end, few but very relevant key choices that need to be done for the technologies that is beneath what we see happening in the life of a hotel. And if the choices are right, the adaptation of the functionalities in the hotel can follow the requirements either of the regulation or of the expectation of the customers, you know, this digitalization or ESG pressure, all these things. But in general, one very simple approach that I would recommend is to make a choice for technologies that are not proprietary or closed system, that can be very easily integrating third-party devices, for instance. And we know that KNX, that has been shown in the previous videos as a backbone, as a foundation of the technology in that hotel, is a very prominent example of a technology that would avoid, you know, those risks of being closed or being not adaptable, not modular. There are other simple, relatively simple principles that can be applied. For instance, choose a system that if you wire it when you build your hotel, when you erect it, can be accredited with wireless devices. There are systems that are closed in that sense. And this doesn't help a very simple technical integration of new functionalities, and so on and so forth, with very, you know, simple and wisdom-driven choices, like, choose systems where the firmware of the device can be upgraded on the fly. So you don't need basically to scrap the device and replace it with a new one. You just go in front of your device or from remote and you adapt even the firmware, not only the software. And so on and so forth. There is basically a list, but not too long, of very wise choices that would allow the modularity, the flexibility, the possibility to start small and simple and then grow your system following the needs. That's what makes resilient the beneath technology in a hotel, and avoid, you know, very frequent and capex horrible experience of replacement, full replacement of equipment.
So I'm keen to hear from the audience and what they believe are some of the risks. So why don't we shift gears to them and launch a poll? So you'll be seeing this now on your screen. And we'd like to know from you what poses the biggest risks when you think about future-proofing hotels. So we've given you four options to choose from. Is it like regulatory change, systems that are hard to upgrade, some rising energy costs, or is it the guest expectations changing too fast? I think you've heard some great context and examples from our speakers here today, but we're keen to hear your thoughts. So go ahead and cast your vote in the chat, and we'll be coming back to your answers during our Q&A session. So eager to hear, to see your thoughts coming through here. I guess this brings us to our next section around what hotels need to succeed when we think about long-term. And I think you rightfully put it, Peter, they're here to stay for many years. And I think we need to stay competitive, but we need to consider, what does that mean in all aspects that you've shared now? So looking ahead to the next decade, what do hotels need to stay competitive? And we'll start with you, Peter. We'll move on to Lucy, and then Raimondo and Aldo. So over to you guys.
Great. Okay, well, I think firstly, collaboration is key, and that's right across the ecosystem. So successful hotel groups will increasingly involve the owners, the operators, technology providers, and sustainability partners from that earliest design phase, not that post-handover piece. So getting that right is going to be critical up front, and that cross-sector collaboration really will reduce that rework and stranded assets. The second bit is resilience, and that is the value driver. So assets with the strong ESG and adaptability credentials will increasingly command lower financial costs, higher investor confidence, and maybe longer term valuations. And so we see that those 2 points are really, really critical, and it all helps that long-term thinking, which must start today. So retrofitting adaptability later is like trying to widen a road after the city is built. It needs to be done right at the outset so that hotels can succeed over the next decades, and make sure that they are the ones that are being prepared for the future and best placed to realise those future opportunities.
Thank you, Peter. Lucy, how about you?
Yeah, so thanks, Peter, for the perspective from, actually, Peter mentioned about from the stakeholder perspectives and also from some regulation part. So I also want to cover from the technology perspective. So looking ahead, hotel that succeed over the next few decades will definitely need to get the three things right. The first one, that they need to be data driven. And as you can see that I love the data being connected. Then they need to be secure. And also, as everybody talk about, adaptable. That means the operation need to build on the connected systems that allow hotel to respond quickly to change while maintaining the performance. So that you need to have a really proper automation. Of course, on top of the hotel automation, you need to have the digitalization to have a total system, have hotel management. That's why I also want to encourage people will join the Light Up Building in March. Well, please stop by the ABB booth that in my building automation session, we are going to launch many great new solution innovations, especially focusing for hotel management and especially for the new innovation on the digitalization. So welcome you to be there, and thanks for the questions.
Why don't we hand it over to you, Raimondo, and then we'll close this section with Aldo.
Thank you, Sue. I think that hotels will stay competitive by making design decisions that keep future options open. Let's take room, climate, and comfort. Reconnecting to what Peter was stating a few minutes ago. Guests think in terms of too warm or too cold and not in terms of systems. So if the experience is designed around simple comfort outcomes, hotel can switch from traditional HVAC to heat pumps, connect to energy management systems, or to meet new sustainability standards without changing how the guests interact with the room. That's the power of human-centered design. Technology can evolve behind the scenes, while the experience remains familiar. And the ability to adapt quietly over time is what keeps hotel competitive, as we say, from an inspirational perspective.
I think just to conclude, a lot has been said already on technology. I want to report what Lucy said. I think the hotel of the future should be really digital, so data-driven and secure. And these two things need to really go along. In general, open, flexible technology platform are what is needed. Modularity, start with the size that is needed and then increase. And finally, maybe a recommendation that can be probably questioned. Hotels have a time constant that is very long, so they need to stay decades in the field. Typically, technology choice related to major brands probably secure this duration in time, because I make the example of ABB and KNX. ABB was there when KNX was invented as a protocol together with other major brands. ABB is still here today, a protagonist of this segment of the business with that technology, and we will stay in the future for the decades to come. So this can be also an approach that is more a commercial one than a technological one, but it has to be considered.
Perfect. No, thank you guys very much for that. And I see some questions probably coming through that will help us unpack further what you've just shared when we look forward. So maybe before we move to the questions, and I think just a reminder to everybody, if you'd like for us to answer any of your questions, you populate it into the chat. Some of you have already shared where you're dialing in from and what is your question, so continue doing that. So let's put a spotlight on the feedback from our poll, and we asked you one question around what do you see as some of the risks? You had three options, and the one that stood out the most from you that voted is the systems that are hard to upgrade. And I think here, Aldo, you really touched on the need of some systems. And Lucy, you talked about the importance about why these systems matter in hotels. And I think, Peter, you really gave us that context around, from a regulatory perspective, why it really matters. These systems also help with the design side of it. So bringing together all of what you've shared, it sounds as though that, B was the most likely one, which brings us all together in terms of thinking, how do we solve this? How do we bring the right technology with the right partners, understanding the regulations out there to be able to really work on this? So a great opportunity for us here when we think about that, given what you've just shared. And I would urge you to also just look at some of our success stories that we've been doing in ABB, where we've kind of brought this together, keeping inside as well as outside factors into context. So why don't we shift over to the Q&A? There's a few coming through there. So we'll start off with one that's probably needing to be unpacked by two of you, but it talks about our increasing technical advancements when it comes to room controls, as well as communication equipment. So what new standards are included for guests to have user-friendly usage, as well as staff to maintain with protective regulations? So here, I think, all of you probably have some bit to say. So why don't we kick off with perhaps you, Aldo, and Peter, if you have anything around the regulation side, please go ahead and add that in. And again, Lucy, Raimondo, if you want to add anything over and above that, you're welcome to do so. So Aldo, will you kick us off here?
Yes, I'm not sure if I interpret correctly. The question is rather complex, so it comes from a person that really has been thinking thoroughly to these and probably expert in the area. I have my convincement. I think when we talk about the guest experience and the usage, I think this is hardly something that can be standardized, so imposed with the document, how to behave. I think standard de facto, driven by simplicity and intuitivity, usability, as Raimondo said, will probably drive those aspects. Of course, there are aspects that has to be regulated. In that case, we will follow. I think if there is a safety thing to be regulated in the room. But for the user experience, I believe more in standard de facto that are driven by simplicity.
Anything you would like to add there, Lucy or Raimondo?
Yeah, maybe what I can add on the comment of Aldo is on the guest side, we see a strong push towards standard that ensure consistency and accessibility. I mean, intuitive interface, clear symbols, and inclusive design, so that anyone can use the room without instruction, regardless of age or ability, for example.
Yeah, so maybe I can cover, I think Aldo and Raimondo, they covered well from the user centricity interface standard, and from the technology standards, basically it's being more open, interoperable. Today we are using a lot of KNX in the hotel solution side, and also some company also using such kind of a communication standard like BACnet. But the more and more, they're also hotel adopting some wireless solutions, wireless standard. For example, this very popular newly one Matter, right? So they are really all these kind of standards enabling this intuitive control for lighting, HVAC, shading, and bonding all of this application together, generating different type of things inside the hotel room through those kind of beautiful touch panel, sometimes even with the mobile apps or even with the voice assistants. And that's from the guest experience perspective. From the hotel staff and operators, the standard absolutely gets into you really need to have the hotel management cyber secured with the data protection. And on the other hand, those kind of IP-based architect from the network communication standards, more and more requests on the energy and the sustainability standards. And then also hotel need to be really safe and compliance. So that's from this kind of technology perspective.
Thank you very much, guys, for unpacking that. There's a few more that's come through, and maybe here I'll ask Lucy if you want to stay on. But when we think about hotel groups running multiple properties, what makes future-proofing so much harder at scale? Lucy, are you here? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, so for the hotel group running multi-properties, what makes future-proofing so much harder? I would say the future-proven solution will make those hotel group running multiple hotels easier. Especially, I wouldn't say it's harder. That's why we are all a bit stuck in this question. And I think I really think the digitalization, and especially with the multiple hotel that are using our, today's cloud-based or edge-based software can monitoring different hotel properties in anywhere. And besides of knowing individual hotels, how the energy consumptions and what is alarming with the situation, you can even compare for the hotel groups and to see different hotel, which hotel having better energy consumption and which hotel is running full and which hotel is still having half empty. So you would definitely make the hotel group operators life much, much easier, and the data all connected inside hotel, uncrossing the hotel and comparing all of these hotels. That's why I find that this going to make much, much easier rather harder.
Thank you, Lucy. I think that was an interesting question, but I knew that you would be able to unpack it and giving the benefits there. So when we think about some of the next question, it's really around on the sustainability topic. So maybe Aldo, if you want to help me with this one, it's is the green footprint of digitalization measurable? So I'm keen to hear how we can unpack this question.
Yeah, of course, it's measurable as anything else, that produces or try to produce emission. I don't know if the question has another layer of interpretation, so that this kind of thinking, well, if we exaggerate with the digitalization of the hotels, we increase somehow the carbon footprint of these buildings. I understand this may be a flavor of this question, but the advantages in terms of carbon footprint saving introduced by digitalization, measuring, understanding, monitoring, putting in place the corrective actions that are needed is much, much bigger than anything that digitalization can introduce. So it's, it's well known that nearly 30–40% of the emissions done by a building like a hotel depends on the thermodynamics. So heating, HVAC, hot water in the rooms. So that's where the biggest impact can be achieved in terms of saving of energy.
Thank you very much for that, Aldo. I mean, there's a few questions that's coming through, and one we're really putting the spotlight on ABB, but also service robots. And here, perhaps, Peter, since you from outside ABB, I think it's really great for you to kind of let us know what's happening in that space. The question is really around the interaction between ABB and service robots and the hotel industry, but maybe it could be a case of how you're seeing this evolving. So what are you guys seeing in the space now around service robots and how that is communicating between buildings? Is that something that you maybe have encountered?
Good question. Yeah, I think the interaction between building systems and robots in the hotels is still emerging, as you've highlighted. But based on the conversations that we've had today, the direction is clear that robots will only add real value when they are integrated into the building environment, not operating in isolation. So as much as we can factor that in, the better, that they're not standalone devices. They've got to be part of supporting the whole operation alongside guests, alongside staff, and those building systems that we've been talking about.
Perfect. Thank you very much for that, Peter. Aldo, I see you nodding. Is there something you'd like to add?
No, I think Peter's comment is really very well posed, because I've seen personally these robots in action in China, in Shanghai, in a hotel. They were looking still more like a demonstrator, of certain capabilities than a real, important player of the life of the hotel. When they will be fully integrated with the information system of the hotel, These can bring probably a step ahead on certain things, but we need this full integration.
Thank you both for that. There's a question that's coming around bridging the gap, which I always like these questions. And here I'll ask you to just raise your hand to see if you'd like to answer this one. But it's regarding hotel projects that are under development or in construction, and that they're considering the operator. But of course, it has certain requirements from a guest experiences. So when you think about the developer and the property owner, they look at CapEx. So how do you bridge that gap? This is a very interesting one, and I think it's one that we've encountered before. So eager to know if you would like to take that.
I'm not an expert on this, but I can guess that I think that the key is to get an early involvement of both sides. So key alignment on outcome like energy efficiency, operational saving, and then system longevity. So an early collaboration on clear performance and metrics in an early stage of the design is what, of course, can deliver this can close this mismatch or to close. I mean, to be the bridge of the discussion. GRMS can satisfy both, but only if the discussion happen at an early stage in the project, from my perspective.
Yeah. Very good. I think this is definitely what Raimondo mentioned is super important to have earlier involvement, and also to balance this operator demands and CapEx for the future-proofed assets. Definitely not overbuild it. And so a modular, standardized based on the GRMS, reduce installation risk, lower total cost ownership. So that's exactly how we try to define such kind of a guest room management software, that we want to build a really kind of a productized software, modular and standard features that can be reusable, and that the hotel owner can start invest less, but then flexible to expand such kind of a software later on when they need it.
Thank you both. Aldo, any final remarks from you, or all good?
No, they said it very well. I would close it like start small but easy to expand. If you start small, everybody is on the same page.
This is great, and that was really a fascinating discussion built around our questions that's come through. So before we move into the segment where we will be doing some takeaways and wrap up, I'd love to hear one final thought from each of you. So maybe by doing so, I'll pose the question to you all. What's the one thing hotels should focus on today? And as I leave you with this question, maybe I'll get you to reflect, and maybe as you finish reflecting, we can start with Peter, who can give us his thoughts, and followed by Lucy.
Great. Okay, so I think hotels should be focusing on resilience. And what I mean by that is focusing on operational resilience, where margin protection, so looking at how they can get better control over their energy, water, and waste. And by doing so, they can absorb volatility and costs going forward. They should look at financial resilience, which we know that investors and lenders are increasingly using environmental and operational performance for a sign of asset quality. So being stronger on that can be strengthening that access to capital. And then innovation, building that operational strategic resilience will enable hotels to use AI systems, building energy management systems, and so on as resilience tools that will secure their longevity going forward.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. So also cover from different perspectives. I think the real value lies in open standard, integrated foundations, and then to enable the future-proofed hotel, definitely enable those innovation and allow the operator and to evolve as guest expectations, and also the business with a lot of business model changes.
On top of what,
yeah,
on top of what I already said, I would just add, and it has been said before, data-driven digital infrastructure, easy to, to adapt for the future.
And with the risk to repeat myself, I will say design for the long run, not the moment. That is the key.
Great. That's very impactful summary points from you all. So thank you very much, Peter, Lucy, Aldo, and Raimondo. It was really an absolute pleasure to have you here. And of course, everybody who's dialed in from around the world. We appreciate you dialing into our Thinking Hotels Live. This does conclude our Thinking Hotels Live series. So we hope that it's really given you some practical insights to prepare for what's next. If you missed any part of the session, the recording will be available on the ABB Electrification LinkedIn page right after the broadcast. So don't hesitate to share it with your colleagues, or even if you want to watch it later on. So from all of us here at the ABB Smart Buildings team, we thank you for joining.